All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Talent.
Ready, camera two.
And cue talent.
2, 1.
Roll to record.
There's no darkness but ignorance, wrote William Shakespeare, but he himself just isn't dark enough for at least one California teacher. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. Yes, Sacramento High School English teacher Dana Dusbiber wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post and said, quote, "I'm sad that so many of my colleagues teach a canon that some white people decided upon so long ago and do it without question. What I worry about is that as long as we continue to cling to one white man's view of life as he lived it so long ago, we perhaps unwittingly promote the notion that other cultural perspectives are less important," end quote. So she's a white English teacher, but she refuses to teach the greatest writer in the English language because he's a white guy. Put into the curriculum by white people. What does she want to teach instead? Well, let's go ahead and go back to the Washington Post. Quote, "Why not teach the oral tradition out of Africa, which includes an equally relevant commentary on human behavior? If we only teach students of color, as I have been fortunate to do in my career, then it is far past the time for us to dispense with our Eurocentric presentation of the literary world," end quote. You got that? She wants to teach African oral traditions in English class. To paraphrase the bard, how well she's read to reason against reading. Aside from the inherent racism of her argument, using only the race of the writer to decide he's worthless to minority student, she's also an awful teacher if she can't get her kids interested in what are, without question, the most popular, most relevant, most insightful, and most compelling works in human history. Joining me to talk about all the controversy is author and political satirist from his home studio in the great state of Texas, Scott Ott, and here in sunny Southern California, stand-up comic, PJTV contributor, Stephen Kruiser. Now, Kruiser, I grew up going to public schools, and I had some amazing history teachers. They told stories, they made it interesting, they made the students want to learn about what happened, not just in the United States, but in the world. I didn't have great English teachers. The English teachers I had would assign the reading, they'd assign the essays that we were supposed to write, but never really got into the storylines like my history teachers did. Because of it, I love history, and I'm not so hot on English. When I did Shakespeare, I had to get the Cliff Notes and had to read the Americanized version of what was going on. When I read what this woman wrote in the Washington Post, it doesn't sound like the students are rejecting Shakespeare. It sounds like they're rejecting a bad teacher poorly teaching Shakespeare. Your thoughts?
This is someone who's plagued by white guilt. She's one of those white guilt avengers. That's what she wants to do, and that's going to be the death of us. The white guilt is going to be the death of us all. If we keep putting people like that in positions of power, it's going to ruin us. And this isn't something new. This is just the latest in a long line of academics who are deliberately trying to purge anything that's Eurocentric from history, from art, from anything else, because they think that that's bad. And they're all white people that are doing this. It's all white hippies that are doing it in colleges. It's all their intellectual spawn that are doing it in grade schools and elementary schools and high schools right now. And I don't even apologize for going here right now, but there is something insidiously Hitlerian about wanting ethnic and racial purity in your subjective entertainment choices. That is just sounds like something that they were working on in Germany in the 30s, okay? It's just wrong. At face value, it's wrong. Shakespeare isn't popular because he's white. He's popular because he wrote a lot and he's really, really quotable. He was really good at it. That's why he's popular. Not everybody isn't sitting around going, who's the white guy who wrote the most? Oh, yeah, let's not, okay. And that's not the way it is. So I think this is just, it's awful. They're going to keep trying to do this. They're trying to eradicate all of this from academia right now, and we need to stop it. Just stop, cauterize this.
Scott, is it possible that academia, or this isn't even really academia, it's a high school, public high school in California, that they are farther to the left than Hollywood? Because Hollywood keeps making movies about Shakespeare. I keep seeing Shakespeare in the Park from the theater community. You go to Broadway, and Shakespeare plays are still popping up there. Hollywood embraces Shakespeare, not academia.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I've actually, for the last couple of years, I've been on a little thing where I've been reading a scene a day from Shakespeare's plays. I've now read through 16 of Shakespeare's plays. I just always thought, everybody talks about Shakespeare, but I really don't know anything about it. So I started reading through it. I'm reading Henry VI Part 2 right now. I think I'm in Act 4 of that. And in Henry VI Part 2, there's a scene where Queen Margaret, who's a French queen who comes over to marry King Henry VI, the English king, is describing how she was sailing across the English Channel but was driven back by a storm. And she says, and I'll quote her here, she says, "And when the dusky sky began to rob my earnest gaping sight of thy land's view, I took a costly jewel from my neck, a heart it was, bound in with diamonds, and threw it towards thy land. The sea received it, and so I wished thy body might my heart." And I read that and I thought, wait a minute, a costly jewel shaped like a heart surrounded by diamonds? That's from Titanic. Shakespeare is ripping off Titanic. And it is just, there are so many things in Shakespeare that connect with the world's culture, which is in many ways shaped by the English language. I think this woman is not broadly representative of English teachers, first of all. I don't think she's broadly representative of anybody other than herself. But it is a shame that she can't do both, that she can't say, you know what, there are African oral traditions that lend fascinating insight into human nature, and there's also Shakespeare, the most prolific of writers in the English language, the most beloved still hundreds of years after his death.
You know what other book that they teach in school that's written by a white person that clearly has to be awful because of the author is To Kill a Mockingbird. Man, that Harper Lee, she's as white as bread. I guess we should take that out too.
She sleeps on a clan hood pillow every night. First I want to clarify something I said before. When I said ethnic purity, she's the one that's demanding ethnic purity for subjective entertainment choices. She's saying black kids shouldn't read the white guy, and so that's the premise that they're going with, and that's what they've been using to purge everything for the longest time. And going to something Scott said, why can't it be both? Why it's this either-or approach to race and ethnicity that the supposedly tolerant people who want to get rid of racism and ethnic preference go for, that really just reinforces racism and ethnic preference, that bothers me so much. That's what's going on here. There's no reason you can't learn Shakespeare and the African oral traditions and, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. You can throw it all in there. Why not throw it all in there? I know this is just an English class, but this sole focus on it can only be this or it can only be that. That's not learning. That's not teaching. Teaching is supposed to be present a wide array of possibilities and let them grasp and let them enjoy and let them learn from that.
And there really is a breadth. I mean, I mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird. Scott, that's a book that's all about the civil rights era. It's all about, or not civil rights era, but certainly about race relations. You look at The Crucible. The Crucible is about the puritanical America, but it's really about the Red Scare. I mean, we learn in English class in public high schools in California about a wide variety of subjects. It's not just one specific author and one specific point of view.
Well, and I think she's got this distorted view that says, look, black kids are not going to identify with this white author. They just can't do it. The reality is, very few kids at all initially identify with William Shakespeare. It's hard. And I think that's what she may be saying overall as a teacher. She's just going, oh, Shakespeare is hard. Why do I have to teach that? But, to say that for some reason, if you're a black kid, you're not going to get it when William Shakespeare is talking about universal concepts of human nature involving love and betrayal and anger and people trying to conquer other people. These are just universal in the human experience. By the way, the best book I've read in the past year, and probably the best autobiography I have ever read, was Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. And this teacher would basically say to me when I was a little white boy, oh, you shouldn't be reading that because you can't identify with that guy. I'm telling you what, Booker T. Washington may be the greatest American I've ever read about, and I would have been impoverished had I not been able to read that.
Scott gets to a point there that just pretty much undermines her entire reasoning behind this. He was talking about that Shakespeare speaking about universal concepts, which of course is why he's prevailed over the centuries right now. She posits that Shakespeare is just giving us a little snippet of life during his time. He wouldn't have endured if that were the case. If that were all it was, it would have been after his time was done, everybody would have gone, oh, that's quaint, it's over here, it means nothing.
You know what we should do? Send this woman a copy of Dangerous Minds, where Michelle Pfeiffer teaches inner city kids that poetry is just another way to rap.
Yes.
That's all the time we have for today's show. What do you think? Should English class drop Shakespeare because he's too white? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.